My name is Doug Heaton, and I'm running for Senate District 24 in the Utah State Legislature. And these videos are to acquaint you with my political principles, help you make an informed decision about your voting choices in this upcoming election. Occasionally in conversation, I like to ask the question, why is it that in the last 200 years, the United States has surged so far ahead of the rest of the world in prosperity and technology and wealth and in general quality of life? Americans on average have so much more than people in other countries. And so many people of the world have a goal to live in America. Dinesh D'Souza tells a story of a friend in India who really wants badly to come to the United States. And when he asked why, the man replied, "I want to live in a country where the poor people are fat." So what is the answer? Are Americans inherently smarter? Do we have significantly more natural resources? Is there something in the water? I believe that none of the above is true. I believe that the reason that America has been the brightest spot in the spectrum of human history is in the genius of the founders and the system of government they established. They somehow identified the combination of fundamental truths that unlock massive human potential. In my opinion, the founders were the greatest collection of political intelligence ever to be assembled in the history of the world. I agreed with President Kennedy's comment when he was hosting the Nobel Prize winners in the White House, and he said, this might be the most intelligence to be in the White House since Thomas Jefferson dined alone. I thought that was profound, and I agree. I agreed with that. I believe in the principles stated in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal under the law, that rights come from God, and that those rights are unalienable, meaning you can't separate the man from the right. And I believe that the purpose of government is to secure those rights. And I believe that the greatest challenge we have is to keep governments at all levels in the mode of securing rights instead of infringing them. I believe in constitutionally enumerated powers, that the federal government is sovereign, but only in its enumerated powers, and that powers not enumerated in the Constitution as federal powers are reserved to the states and ultimately to the people, that the people are the source of all power. The federal government, the states, and the people, those three, the government, the states, and the people, constitute the other balance of power, quote unquote, designed into the system by the founders. We're really familiar with the delicate balance of powers between the executive and the legislative and the judicial branches of government at the federal level. But we're less familiar with the fact that there's another balance of power between federal, state, and the people. In the legislature of the United States, both the states and the people had a house that was designed to protect them in all matters federal. In order for a law to be passed, it had to pass the people's house. It also had to pass the state's house, the people's house being the House of Representatives, the state's house being the Senate. And originally, the states were represented by two senators that were appointed by state legislation, the state legislators, and they represented the states in all legislative matters. The Senate protected the states from rights. Protected states' rights from intrusion from the federal government. And probably the most serious political mistake in our history was the 17th Amendment, which made the senators elected by the popular vote and left the sovereign states unprotected from federal overreach. As a direct result of the federal government has been able to reach beyond its enumerated powers, that could never have happened if the senators had been appointed or remained appointed by the states. Notwithstanding, I believe that one of the premier duties of state government is to hold the federal government to its enumerated powers and protect its citizens from the federal overreach. And so, in conclusion, we live in the most free and prosperous time and place in the history of the world. And those blessings are a direct result of our national adherence to the principles on which freedom and prosperity are based, as identified by our founding fathers. I believe that should we ever forget the source of those blessings or turn from the principles that allowed those blessings, we will surely lose both our freedom and our prosperity. One of my favorite quotes, there is a law irrevocably decreed before the foundation of this world upon which all blessings are predicated. And when we obtain any blessing from God, it is by obedience to that law upon which it is predicated. I believe that to be an absolute truth. And if we want to be free, we have got to adhere to the principles, laws upon which liberty are based. My name is Doug Heaton, and I'm running for Senate District 24 in the Utah State Legislature.